Why are the most successful producers also the least talented producers? I mean, there are all these talented producers, and it seems like the most famous, the most successful producers are the ones that are just all right. I think I'm being sarcastic here because I hear that a lot. I hear that often. Usually it's by producers who think they're a lot better than they actually are. But I think there is some truth in that statement that producers who are just all right or who are decent can become more successful than producers that others would consider more talented or more creative. I have a theory as to why that's true. I also don't believe that that's some hard and fast rule. There are so many producers in the music business that are incredibly talented, super innovative, and they are winning based on their talent. So yeah, you'll hear bitch ass producers talking about everything sounds the same, blah blah blah. Those are the same kinds of producers who would say a Needles beat and a Pierre Bourne beat and a Benny X beat all sound the same because their ears aren't sophisticated enough to even make that distinction. So they shouldn't even be a part of the conversation. But there is this clip of Ant Chamberlain. If you don't know who Ant Chamberlain is, he's a great producer. He executive produced Moray's debut album. And the clip was titled, "Producers Just Don't Want It That Badly." And I want to talk about that. So I brought it up on the podcast. He talks about how he was sneaking away from his job to make beats. I talk about how I was actually kind of making beats at work and doing business at work, because I was just completely obsessed with making beats. And then the whole trap that a lot of producers do get caught in, where they might be super talented. They might say that they want to make a living off of music. They might say that they love music. They might say they live and breathe music production, but then they prioritize a social life. They prioritize going out and drinking. They prioritize everything but making beats and focusing on improving and succeeding as music producers. So let's talk about that. Appreciate you tuning in to the new podcast channel. The link to the full episode is below. But what do you think? What holds talented producers back from succeeding? Leave a comment as long as the word Illuminati is not a part of that comment. Appreciate you watching. Much success to you. Peace.
I had to be at work at 4 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. And I worked at 6 p.m. Bro, that's 14 hours. Damn. I would get off work, go home. We'll get 2 days off in between. So we'll work 2, off 2, work 2, off 2. Okay. So, bro, when I get off work at 6, bro, I'm making beats till like 12, waking up at 4 just because I wanted to learn. That's why every producer with an excuse, I don't give it to them. Ooh. Anybody with a job, I don't give it to them. Because if you want to do it, you going to do it, bro. I was dead tired. And guess what? I was sneaking off at work. I would go back to the bedroom for like an hour or two, finish a beat that I was working on, and then go back to work like nothing happened. Like, that's what I was doing because I really wanted to get hard at it. Like, I would watch Southside Lives and everybody cooking up. Now I'd be like, bro, I got to make a beat.
So I can relate to this, not to the extent, and I believe Ant Chamberlain also was in the military. So there's a lot of structure and discipline involved in that lifestyle that probably carried over into him being self-directed in his beat making endeavors. But yeah, like I was at work, and if I could multitask at work and they let it slide, because I had a supervisor who was also a musician, so he wasn't super strict about what I was doing as long as I got my work done, I would be downloading samples and like networking on MySpace. And I even took business when I got my first major placement on the Jeezy album. I got that call at work. So I walked out of the office and then I came back in. I told my manager, I was like, hey, so something crazy just happened. He was like, oh, that's great. That's cool. So yeah, I mean, it resonated with me. What are your reactions?
I mean, it just gives you a little glimpse into what other people that are trying to do the same thing you're doing are willing to do. You know what I'm saying? If you're essentially competing with people, in the same field, if they're working 12 hours and you're working 2, I hope you were born with an amazing gift that didn't require too much practice, because it's going to be borderline impossible for you to compete with the cats that are willing to put in, the additional hours. So I'm not familiar with that producer. He seems to be doing well, and it's a testament to the work that he apparently has put in. So shout out to him.
I do want to make a comment because I've encountered this lately. I think that there are lazy people who use excuses, and so I don't think that that's everybody that we're talking to. And that's kind of like to Dame's point, like we don't want to always validate the people sending the wild ass DMs who just don't make sense. But I have encountered a lot of artists whose ignorance to the business has them working really hard and not moving anywhere, right? And that's something that I've encountered, I would say, a lot in the last like 6 to 8 months as I've been at conferences and stuff. I've encountered some like corporate people who are like, I saved for 2 years and I just quit. I'm about to go do this thing. And when they start talking to me, I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Maybe in like 2012 or 2013, the thing that you're saying that you're spending your time on makes sense. Or like, I don't want to give too specific of examples, but I've encountered a lot of artists who are just doing a lot. Like their output is high, but there's no business model, right? And so I would like to say right now, if you think that just developing your skill and getting really good at making beats or really good at writing songs or really good at recording or releasing music every week is going to now render this result of in 2 years, I'm going to look back and have a really solid career, that's not necessarily true, because there's so many other tenets and factors that have to be played into this. If you stay in your same city releasing those same tracks for the next 2 years, there could be nothing. Nobody may pay attention to you on Instagram. You may not get any streams. Part of that is because you have to get not out of your city, because I think I'm not saying that, but you have to get out and be in the environment of people making money as a business. You can't just be like, oh, well, my homeboy does this, and because you have to build a new business model for you. If you're somebody who is barely making it or you're looking to make more money, like for me, I realized that I kept doing the same things and I was making about the same money. That's why I got into tech. I'm like, this is dumb. Like I have this video I recorded the other day, and even though we're still doing shows, we're doing it from a different perspective. We were scrolling through our sales like a couple of nights ago, and it was just like, you know how you see those kids on YouTube and they're like, these are my Shopify sales, and they just keep popping up. Yeah. That's what we were looking at, our sales, and it was like, I was like, we got a check yesterday from one of our partners. I've never gotten a check like for one of our companies. It's one of the biggest checks I've ever gotten, but it's for my newest company, right? And it's like, none of that comes to me yet because we're still not busting down money as owners yet. But I started to think like this took a brain shift for me 3 years ago to say that the music industry was not offering me the type of security that I wanted, because there was so much instability when it came to how to make my money, because the industry changes so often. So I won't say a foolproof, but I built a business model around what I still wanted to do, around my expertise. And then I took my talents to another league. Do you know what I'm saying? And so I think that some people are so dead set, jello ball on being in the NBA. You're missing out on playing in China, Australia, all these things. Like, sure, you made it big with a song. Glad that you're recording, but it's like, to a degree, some people are so locked into, I'm going to be this big artist, I'm going to do this thing, so I'm just going to get my reps in because I saw 50 Cent, I saw, all these different people talking about, I just worked, and then I got really good. You're missing all the other parts of the story where they scaled their business model from connecting with this person or doing this thing or building this way. And then a lot of your heroes were born and created before the internet is what it is today. So that's even what my point was when we had that arguing episode. It's like, you got to use a real world example, or you have to be your own example, but don't get so caught in just making the product good, because good products die daily. I see it. Tech companies die daily. Your good product is not, I've seen mediocre products thrive every single day because they had a good business model. So I just want to drive this point home. If you think that building a good product and just consistently releasing it is what's going to lead to your win, you're wrong. I haven't seen it happen that way.
I would consider myself, maybe I shouldn't say this, I don't like negative. I don't see it as negative though. Like in my city, I'm not even the best producer. There's so much talent in my area. And on a global scale on the internet, there are so many amazing producers, but and you hear it all the time from people that are like, oh, the only producers that get anywhere are mediocre. They make the same sounding beats. They're not as good as the real producer. The real producers aren't making any money. And I'm like, one, that's not true. But two, a lot of these talented producers just aren't working. And the ones, I almost feel like being mediocre as a musician is an asset for a lot of people. Because for me, like, I struggled with not making great beats. I couldn't even finish a beat. So that could have gone one of two ways. One, I just stay stuck in my ways, or two, I changed it. When I decided to change that, all of a sudden, I'm teaching myself discipline. I'm getting better in the process, but I'm also outworking everybody else because I can't rely on my talent. Talented producers, they rely on their talent. They don't rely on their hustle a lot of times. If you have both, great. But a lot of producers, like Ant Chamberlain said, they just don't want it badly enough. Dame, you said it. It's obsession. You go to work and you're not thinking about making beats. You go home and you're eating. You're not anxious about not being in front of a DAW. I take a walk outside and I have beat ideas. I'm like, damn, why am I outside taking a walk? I want to get back to the studio. This is obsession. I don't know if it's healthy or not, but the people that I see winning have that obsession.
Even with the folks that, claim to be making quality music, there's a disconnect between, how other people are receiving that music.
Don't get me started.
Like, you might think that the music is amazing, but it's not connecting. I've just seen so many artists over time, that the music just isn't that good yet. And which probably comes before that is that you're just not an interesting person. Like there's no story here. You just rap. Like, and there's a shitload of people that rap.
People, this thing that pisses me off the most is when people like, check out my song. I'm like, it doesn't matter if I like your song. It literally doesn't, because it's like, it could be good. You could be a decent human being. You could have 100 songs in your catalog. It still doesn't matter. Like, it literally does not matter. Like, you have to have a scalable business model. You have to be outside, touching the people, figuring this shit out. And I think as an artist, you're in a really tough position because you are at the center and you're trying to only scale you. The benefit with me is I'm building a community of other creatives who are being attractive, and by default, it's attracting people to me, right? And I'm not talking about building a community around your music. Like, I'm literally in community technology right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, with my media company, I'm building building a world and building concepts around what I believe Gen Z really needs to hear right now.